Hello awesome blossoms, welcome back to my channel. I'm Anna. Before I go any further, I just want to say I hope you all are doing well. I hope you all are safe. I hope you all are taking all the necessary precautions to keep your loved ones safe. And this is a very trying time, and it's something that a lot of us have never had to endure before. In fact, probably most of us have never had to endure before. It's very jarring, it's very scary. The future has always been uncertain, but I think in this particular situation, it's really hitting a lot of us in the face. I know for me, I've just graduated and I've really now just had the time to consider everything that's happened and sort of the consequences that a lot of people have had to face because of it. And just finding out how to move forward has been difficult. Thankfully, the things that are important are still around, like, you know, my family, we're all healthy, we're all safe. So those are the things that I kind of have to focus on to sort of ground myself and not let myself get carried away by the anxiety and the fears that are sort of normal, but, you know, nonetheless exhausting. Yeah, so I hope you guys are doing well. This is not going to be a long video. I'm not really going to be talking a lot about any one specific poetry book, mainly because I've just started getting back into reading poetry. I haven't really been able to read poetry while I was in school because funny enough, you think that doing school from home is going to be a lot easier, it's going to be a breeze, and then your professors will tell you that like more work is due, and it's just been really stressful. And so I didn't feel like I could read poetry at the time that I was doing school, but now thankfully I've started reading poetry again. I'm really excited to kind of get back into the groove with making videos. I was so stressed for this school year that I totally skipped over National Poetry Month, which was April. And I didn't do any posts on Instagram, I didn't do any videos, I didn't read any poetry. I didn't even remember that it was National Poetry Month until the end of the month, and then I was like, oh wow, that's a different level of stress right there. But I'm hoping to make up for all that this year. This video is really just going to be a couple of books that I sort of want to remind you guys that are really encouraging, really awesome books to consider while you're sort of at home or quarantined. And also tell you guys that because I'm freed up with school, I do have time now to read anything that you guys want me to read in terms of poetry. I'll even read like short stories, but I do want to kind of keep it geared toward poetry. So for the people who had contacted me earlier in the year, thank you so much for doing that. And now that I finally have time, I'll be reaching out to you guys to let you know where you can send your work so that I can read it and tell you what I think. And for anybody who is now currently writing in quarantine because there's not really a lot else to do, send that stuff to me if you want to. I know personally how hard it is to sort of get your work out there. I post my own work on Instagram, but a lot of times it's a challenge to sort of get over that mindset of like, oh, it's not perfect, like the idea that people won't like it, or that, you know, something is just not right in my mind about my work. But I really want to sort of practice more with encouraging myself and you guys to be bolder in getting work out there. That's the only way that we can grow. And I know, like, when I was just starting in poetry, I was definitely like putting a lot more work out into the internet public, and I was getting a lot of feedback, and it really helped and encouraged me to keep doing more. And so that's what I want to do for you guys, and I hope that in me doing that for you, that'll also sort of fuel me to do that for myself. So let's get into these few books that I want to talk about, and then we'll be done. So a really good book that I remember reading, I've read this one before, but I'm definitely going to be rereading it, is Chasers of the Light by Tyler Gregson. I read this a couple years ago, and I really have never forgotten the feeling that this book gave me. Tyler Gregson is an ethereal writer. Like, specifically, his words are ethereal, the way that he puts everything together. He's also a photographer, and so his book is really a work of art in that it mixes photography and poetry together. Unfortunately, this is the only book I have for him, but he has, I think, a couple more books that he's published that I would love to get at some point. This one is really special to me. I started reading this when I was just getting into poetry, and it was just a great start for me. This is one that I would definitely recommend now. It's very hopeful, just very encouraging for, you know, anyone who feels like really down right now. The next book I'm excited to get around to is by Ebony Stewart, called Homegirl Hood. I went to see a performance of Buddy Wakefield, and she opened for him, and she's an amazing performer. Just go look for her work. She is bold, she is unafraid. She talks a lot about race, about sexism, about basically anything that is important nowadays, and she is unafraid to say what she thinks. And as someone who is always afraid to say what she thinks, I hope a little bit of her courage rubs off on me. Yeah, I started reading it, but at the time I just wasn't in the right mind frame. I was very stressed, and I really like being able to take my time with poetry. So I will be getting started with this very soon, and I hope to have a review for you guys in the near future. The next book is one that I literally just got in the mail. I don't know a lot about this poet. However, I was really intrigued because I found a couple of his poems on Pinterest, of all places, and I was just taken aback by how powerful they were. And I wanted to know more about this poet. His name is Rainer Maria Rilke, and I hope I'm saying that right. I know he's a German poet, and this has been translated into English, but it's called Letters to a Young Poet. It's been translated by M.D. Herder Norton. I'm going into this one completely blind. I know absolutely nothing about the poet, about anything really about him, but I'm really looking forward to reading this just sort of based off of the things that I've seen on the internet. The next book that I have is Deaf Republic by Ilya Kaminsky. I also had the privilege of watching him perform. A fantastic person, poet, thinker. He is deaf, but that does not stop him from being an absolutely magnificent performer. His performance is very lyrical. It's basically like he's singing his own words, which is a different experience, and at first it was overwhelming, and then you sort of get into his rhythm and you're like, oh my gosh, this is actually amazing. This is actually a really important book for now. I feel like with all of the polarization that's going on with politics, with health, this book raises a really important question. The question on the back, what happens when the citizens of a country no longer hear one another? I feel like that's happening. It has been happening. I think with crisis, it has the tendency to escalate, and I feel like a society has the choice to go with cohesion or conflict. I feel like this virus has really escalated the undercurrent of conflict that we've sort of been sitting on for the past, I don't know, 4 or 5 years. Because he's from, they say, the former Soviet Union, he knows a lot about crisis, about strife, and of course, I'm assuming that his experiences have been a lot more traumatic than even what we're going through, but nonetheless, it's good to consider those questions even before we get to a traumatic state. Yeah, so I'm definitely ready to delve into this and think more on this. I hope to have a review in the future as well for this one. Kind of my trepidation in reviewing these books is that their work is so good and it is kind of above me, if that makes sense. Sometimes I feel inadequate in reviewing these works because I feel like they've already been reviewed by people who know so much more about poetry than I do, but I want to remind myself that I'm also doing this to understand it better, and I'm also doing this, of course, for you guys who, some of you may not know a lot about poetry, and I want to kind of help you find your way through the sea of poets and poetry that's out there. And so if I can just even interest you in a book or a poem or a poet, then I'll be happy with that. So yeah, I have to remind myself that it's not just about my level of understanding or my level of talent per se, but it's also about the love of the art itself, which is definitely there. That I think is a qualification enough. The next one is one that I'm actually currently reading. I'm almost done with it. It is by Buddy Wakefield, who I mentioned earlier, A Choir of Honest Killers. This one is, I don't know how to explain it. I don't want to give like a full review of it yet because I'm still debating on how I'm going to make a video about this book because it's gonna be so long. You guys, the book is already like over 200 pages, and sometimes I'm reading it and I'm thinking, if I'm gonna sit down and talk about this, it's gonna be like a 2-hour long video, and I don't want to do that to you guys. But this is a magnificent book. Buddy Wakefield, I've gotten to see him perform, and I've always just been so taken away by his passion, by his angst, and that was only scratching the surface. Like, what I knew about him before I read this book was really only scratching the surface, because this is insane. This is an amazing work, and you can tell this is his whole life. And I don't mean like I don't mean like he's worked really hard. I mean like he's literally written his whole life in this book, and that goes beyond hard work. That is really sacrifice. To be able to be that vulnerable, that honest, that real, it's almost terrifying that somebody has that amount of courage, and then you're left wondering, oh my God, is my poetry even even a quarter or even an eighth as good as that? Because the requirement would be like complete sort of upheaval of everything that you know. In that way, it is inspiring. It's an aspirational thing of like, this is one of the goals that I have to reach, of like on a vulnerability scale. So yeah, I would definitely recommend this one. It's not necessarily light and upbeat, but it's definitely human, and I think we need to be reminded of our humanness more now than ever. I hope that I've inspired you guys to read poetry, to get interested in poetry. It's a timeless art form, and it's one that I don't think we'll ever lose. There's just something that poetry can do that prose cannot. I just want to encourage you guys to dip your toe in and see all of the things that you could find. There is poetry out there for all of us. I hope that as you guys, you know, maybe read some of the ones I've talked about, or read ones that you're interested in, you'll tell me about it so that I can read them. So that is all for today. I don't want to, you know, take up too much time. When I do give reviews, I do want them to be more structured, and I want to have time to do that. So I'm going to be working really hard on that. But yeah, I hope you guys stay safe. I hope you guys find ways of relieving your stress, your anxieties, your worries, your fears. I want to remind you guys that where there's life, there's hope. We're all going through different things. I just want to find a way of giving you hope. I hope that some of these books will remind you of that. And yeah, so until next time, bye.